Yeah, welcome back to the MC65M, the podcast where we explore Microsoft, AI, cloud, business transformation, and the people shaping the future of technology. Today's guest brings a perspective we don't often hear in AI discussions. While many conversations focus on bigger models, more agents, faster automation, she asks gifts question. Should we build it? Can people trust it? How do we make AI actually useful inside organizations? Joining us today is Wiebke Apitzsch, founder of AI Impact, AI strategy advisor, executive coach, keynote speaker, and someone working right at the intersection of technology, philosophy, ethics, and business strategy. With experience from top tier consulting, including BCG, excluding coaching at Inseed, ongoing philosophy studies, and deep practical working, helping organizations adopting generative AI responsible. She helps leadership teams move from AI hype to AI impact. Today, we will explore responsible AI, Microsoft Copilot, AI agents, company culture, trust, ethics, leaderships, and the future of work, and much more. Vivka, welcome to the MC65 FM.
Hi. Wow, that was a very long list of items to cover today. So I'm looking forward and let's see how far we can get, no?
Yeah. Before we get really deep dive into the topics, can you tell us a little bit about you and why you are fascinated from technology?
Yeah, so working in technology was never my plan. Yeah. um, I After school, I didn't really have a clear idea what to do. And then I went into the hospitality industry. And I think what I took from there is customer first. Yeah, I think you don't learn it as well anywhere else. And then I started to kind of stumble into my first of the three topics, technology, when I worked with little hotel databases to do CRM and moved to BCG, where I joined a very specific team, which was building little prototypes and models for those very big clients. And I traveled a lot and I coded a little, not very well, but I understood how it works. Um, and also I was, able to see a little bit of the strategy consulting as well, like um, how do people set up strategies? How do we move forward? I was part of the team who built up BCGX, so that was more strategic work. Um, and one other thing I did kind of in between was to look a little bit into philosophy. I did study half a year philosophy at the LMU, and then I found out that I'm not very good at driving cars, and I thought like taxi driver is not for me, so I stopped doing that and went to business administration. But these three topics followed me all my life, like technology, philosophy, and strategy, because you have to understand what it actually is. You have to think where it should go to, and then you have to execute. Yeah. And if one of those is missing, you don't get anywhere. So over the years, I learned and I practiced and I did projects and da 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 da. And now I really feel it's the moment to talk about it more because AI changes so many things that we have to go back to the basics to make good decisions.
And how has the consulting part influenced your thinking about, or your thinking today?
I think these three topics that I mentioned are very different. And yeah, business administration and consulting is from a logic perspective the simplest because we calculate with plus and minus, and we have like there's €1 and I need to get 120 back so that it's a good case. And if I only get 90 cents back or nothing, then it's a bad case. So from that perspective, it's very, very simple. But it is very complex in terms of stakeholder management. um, there's a lot of emotion, worries, fears, yeah, because while in technology you can do a deep analysis and find out that this model is the best today, in business you are already good if you win at 51% of the cases. Yeah. So
Mhm.
some people who work in how you call it, market shares and trading and all that, that's what they do. Yeah, they are 21% right, and that makes them billionaires. So um, there come the coaching and the execution and the being fast and making bold decisions even though you don't know. And it's really hard to integrate, but I think, if you build good teams, then you can do it. So just to make it one more in a very short sentence, the consulting forces you to make bold decisions fast, and that's and to make sure you execute, because as long as you are in a theory, you're in academia and you don't make money, and we have to make money because else we don't have companies.
Mhm.
Um, this is what I learned from that, and this is what always gives some pressure to my otherwise more bold thinking.
Yeah, and now you are the founder of AI Intact. Can you tell a little bit about your company and why you founded?
So we are three managing directors, and we are very, very different. Um, the reason why I wanted to work on my own company is because I always work very hard, but then sometimes you do it for someone else, and I felt that it would be better to do it with getting the impact for extra hours, not so much the hour itself, but the impact, the overall impact. Um, and with my two co-founders, I think it's a very interesting but also very valuable mix. Um, because you heard a lot about myself now, but then there's Rutger, who used to be a professor for physics, and
Mm.
he is very deep in mathematics and logic and models, and it took us quite a while to be able to have a conversation, because frankly sometimes I just didn't get it, yeah. But um now that I started to study philosophy again, that became much easier, because mathematics and philosophy it seemed to be very similar, and with big ideas like the knowledge machine of Leibniz and so on,
Mhm.
um, we have a common ground, and we can now develop models together that will actually work in real life. So, but it's very complex. And then we have Felix, who is from the IT area. Not only, I mean, he also is very good at working with clients and thinking thinking into the future, but he also knows all these basics, like how do I implement it? What is the right database to use? What do we do, and how do we exchange data from A to Z? Yeah. Um, so that's a combination, and I think together we can really make a difference, because only if you think all three dimensions together, you can really create projects that deliver what you expected in the time that you estimated.
Mm, yeah, that's interesting. But the cool team. So you have all these different parts there. I think a little bit in companies or yeah, everybody says they are doing AI. Every product has this label AI. Um, but yeah, I see it on my coffee machine. It's not create any value for me. That's AI inside. But yeah, why is AI adoption still so difficult?
I think the expectation and what the tool can actually deliver, they differ. Um, and that's for many reasons. So to be honest, everyone goes like, let's do AI, and then people talk to us, and we always go like, can we avoid AI? Yeah. Do we really have to use that, or can we maybe solve it in a different way? Um, because yeah, how do I phrase it best? So I think many years we were building very smart models like machine learning, predictions, and so on, and they did what they were supposed to do, but most people didn't understand what happened, so they didn't trust the system. Um, and we had a problem with data quality, but that's what everyone says. So now we have Gen AI, and suddenly it became useful for C-level positions. Yeah. So they realized, okay, if this really improves my email writing, then it must be able to do everything. And that is not true. Yeah. And so there's this question about how do I train the data? How can I apply it? How should it get access to my own information? Because the impression is, it can really write a very cool essay about Kant. So it should be able to write a short essay about my cups that I'm producing. Yeah, but of course, it doesn't have the data. It doesn't have the background information. We have to build up a secure system if there's confidential stuff in there. So we have a very enthusiastic start, and then we have a very heavy low, yeah, because people then realize, it's not as easy as I thought, and this doesn't work like this, and they stop. I think that's the one thing, and the other thing is really a more philosophical question because at after a workshop, people are often very enthusiastic and they feel like, let's do AI first, and let's do all of this automated. And then when they come home, they feel more like, what does it mean? Yeah, for my company, for my colleagues, for the future. If I apply this cold bot to all of my processes, what will my anchors just say when I arrive in heaven someday? Yeah. And then they hesitate. It's not really that they actively say no, but it's more like an unclear gut feeling. What am I doing to my company?
Mm.
And uh, and I think this keeps many people from execution. And that's why we also offer this ethics guideline and introduction workshops with some philosophical thinking. And that's why we ask the question: Who do we want to be with AI going forward? What is my personal view on how this company should operate with Gen AI? And the big question that we have to ask there is, what is mankind? Yeah, who are humans in this company, and what activities should be only for humans, regardless if AI could maybe, from a technological perspective, cover some of it or not. So once we dice them out, it typically becomes very easy to automate everything else because the worry is gone. Um, yeah, I can bring it. I don't know. Should I go a bit more deeper into philosophy behind it, or is that
Yeah,
enough
yeah.
for now? It's
It's something new for me, so I'm really interested.
okay. So one I really like to cite for this is Kant, with his thoughts about dignity and price.
Mhm.
Um, so he says high level. Yeah, I'm not citing exactly. But he says everything either has a price or dignity. Yeah, and everything that has a price can be automated. So I think that is very logical to us. Yeah, if I'm just running through, I don't know, automated emails with notifications like tonight the server will be updated or what, there's no value in having a real person sending that email to 2,000 people, right? And we don't feel that it is in any way disrespecting us as humans to get such an update email. It's fine. It has a price. It is just a thing that someone has to do to notify me, but there's no personality, no emotion involved. And then there's other things where we interact with humans, and of course they also deliver something with price, with value. Yeah. So for example, they call me to say that there's maybe a problem with my bank account. So there's something I would pay for, and that's fine. But I always have to treat the human as a human. I have to respect his or her dignity. And by doing so, in both directions, we build up a relation. And that is something with a very big value. Um, so if I'm going back to business administration, the two most costly things are finding clients and keeping employees or finding employees, right? These are the two things. So if I don't have employees and I don't have clients, then I don't have a company. So that makes it very clear that this is essential to make sure that every area where I build up relationships, I have to really protect them. It doesn't mean that I cannot use AI in these processes, but I have to use them as supportive elements. Like um if I had said, you know what, I'm really busy, weather is very nice, I will just send my avatar to do this podcast with you. um, and maybe if it's very well trained and I prepared it super good with all my knowledge and all my personal views, whatever, maybe in theory it would perform as good or maybe much better than I do. But the moment you find out that I sent my avatar, you would not be happy. Yeah. So I am pretty sure that you would not post the podcast and you would be super angry because f- for some reason, yeah, and that's I think that's the interesting point. for some reason you prefer the real life Wiebke with her, spell wording issues, sometimes searching for the right word to say it and maybe saying, we have to redo this. I made a mistake and so on. You prefer this versus having maybe the perfect bot saying the things I say. And that is because for some reason, the real human matters. Yeah. We want a real interaction here. And everyone listening to this podcast would also say, hey, I'm not going to listen to a bot, spreading some kind of more or less maybe good and maybe stupid content. I will listen to a human being sharing experience. They make a distinction here. So, and this is what we have to put through all our process thinking when we apply AI. Where do I need a human? And it is no problem at all if I, for instance, had a second screen open and maybe I would sometimes cross check and say, hey, what was the philosopher's name? Or can you please bring me my favorite citation? I don't remember what Sartre says, what I always like to say. No issue with that if I use it as support, but you want a real person saying this. Yeah. And I would personally encourage every company to think it through, to put out where's the value of humans in my company, protect this, support this maybe with AI, but not automated. And everything else can be automated with no bad gut feeling at all, and will then bring efficiency, um, better results, higher quality, more automation, and all the good things that we actually want from it.
Mm, I think a little bit, yeah, we had also, I think another change before, it was the industrialization uh, and there are also this had an impact of philosophy. So I say, I think one of the famous guy I'd also like, but Karl Marx and so on. So did you think also AI has an impact on philosophy?
Well, of course, many philosophers are engaged with, discussing the role of AI, the question if it is conscious, the question of how it can be implemented into our world. There's a lot of ethical discussions about how we can actually train these models and if how we do it is acceptable. And I think the short answer is most likely no, but it's still done. So there's a lot of thinking, and for me, the one big thing is that for thousands of years, the difference that we made between humans and non-humans overall, yeah, was that humans are those with a language and the ability to think rationally. So my dog is super cute and he's very empathetic and fun and loving and all. And we could maybe discuss about the language because I think science found out that animals do have their own languages, but they don't have this intellectual language that I don't know writes philosophical texts about our future or does statistics and mathematics and these things. So I think there most people would agree that animals don't do it. Maybe they think it's stupid, but or they're not able, but they don't do it. Yeah. So this I think we can agree on. And now this typical distinction becomes problematic because we suddenly have a new kind of creature.
Hmm.
It is not furry, it is not sweet, and it doesn't have like a nice tail waving, yeah. Um, but it does something that is at least similar to our thinking. So we can we can books are written, tons of books are written about is what Gen AI does, is that something like thinking or is it conscious or not? Um, and I think that's a very good philosophical question. It's not very practical question because in essence, yeah, I know few people who never shouted at their printers because the printer goes like, "I cannot print, I don't have magenta," and you go like, "It's black and white, go do it," and the printer goes like, "No." Yeah. So, and we feel then that this printer is a super bad person. Yeah. So you make it you make it a person. You give it a personality. You say my printer is evil. Yeah.
mm,
So how on earth should standard human beings, yeah, who shout at printers, make a real life distinction between a system that tells them in a very empathetic way that they are sorry and not, yeah, humanize it in a way, yeah, and make this clear distinction like, oh no, it's just working with statistics and very good assumptions, and that's why it wrote me this message, and I have to cross check it. The better it gets, the more we will feel that it is
mm,
like us, even though it's not. But you still shout at the printer, so it makes a theoretical difference, not a real life difference. Um, and that makes it so important to create a new way of framing the world and make
mhm,
a simple distinction while we are still in a cool and thoughtful mood, so that once we get into the angry mood and maybe into the stress, we don't make mistakes by making an AI, giving an AI the same role as a human.
mm,
Yeah. And I think that's the big philosophical challenge right now to create this new anthropology, and everything else comes after. But there's a lot of after as well, or in the same time.
mm. Yeah, that's really really interesting. I think one big topic is it's the ethics, and a lot of people taking or talking about ethics in AI. So
Mhm.
there, I think there are a lot of problems, but one of the simplest way is it's what role does human work play in the future? I think that's one of the biggest questions a lot of people have.
Mhm.
What do you think on this?
Mhm. Yeah, so I think the role in the future is not an ethical question, but a practical question, right? Because um, I know that many people um, call themselves AI ethics experts or so. And what most of those people do is to say, I think this is bad or I think this is good. Yeah.
Mhm,
Um, which is not, which is an opinion, but not ethical thinking. So if you were to think about what is a good way or a bad way, so is this acceptable or is this um uh, how should we treat it? What should we do? Yeah, there you have to give a broader, you have to go into a broader scope, and you have to distinguish what model you want to use and if what is good for you and all these definitions, which is lacking very often. Um, but this question of what role will it play in the future is a practical question. So, and there I think it's there are two options. Yeah. So one is people who don't care so much about the overall good in the world, yeah, can automate many things with AI that should not be automated with AI, as I described before. But also those people will run into clear boundaries. Yeah, and this is what I explained before. So if you destroy your client relationship by sending the CEO of your biggest customer a sloppy AI email with maybe even wrong information, you may lose this client and then you don't have a company. Yeah. So I think that we will, or I hope, yeah, that we will move into a future where, from for clear economic reasons, um, we make sure that that the relational elements remain relational, and where humans have to do things that are very hard or not possible to create with AI. So, for example, to make comprehensive decisions, um, to make to make innovation, like really go into new things. And the reason why I think it's realistic is because only humans have actual pain. Yeah. So if I want to bring in a business innovation, I can of course use stochastics and say, what other options are there, and then I can choose one. But the machine doesn't feel pain. So the machine does not go outside and say, "This is a cold day. I don't like that. I need a jacket." Or the machine doesn't sit and say, "I'm bored." The machine doesn't sit and say, "I'm hungry." Yeah. Or Why do I have to gain weight if I eat fast food? Yeah, I'm not happy with that. So this kind of impulse is something that really remains humans because the machine is happy. Yeah. Um, if nothing happens, you can put things into their base code to search for something, but this still comes from the human to say, I want you to always be kind or so. So bringing impulses will remain human to execute, to check, to test, also to test from a stochastic perspective, like what newsletter works better to sell my product. This can be done by AI. Um, to build up real relationships, to make sure someone buys from your company, even though others exist, remains human. To then execute tasks like copying things from A to B, making sure the newsletter goes out every week, maybe even following up like PMO tasks. This could go to AI, but to then decide, do we want to do this or not? Do I purchase this piece of land? Do I build up a new piece? This is some things that will also remain human because in the end, there is one person that has the money, and this person in the end will want to decide what to use the money for. Yeah. So I think if you follow this route of thinking, you can come to a more or less realistic version of the future without complete dystopia.
Cool. The money, yeah. I have tried to give my one of my AI agents his own money, but he doesn't spend it very well. He do fall. Yeah, I have to try it again. But yeah, I think a big topic is it's autonomous AI. How autonomous should AI be, and is there anything where we have the man in the loop or a person in the loop? And yeah, I think this is my first question.
Yeah, I think this autonomous AI, I don't know where the value would be to have it. Yeah. Um, and as you just said, so you gave a certain amount of money to your AI and you decided that this is kind of risk money. And so it sounded as if it was gone. Can happen, yeah. It can happen that you make a lot of money with that, but we also sometimes invest in risky shares. And if you're lucky, we get it back. And if we're unlucky, we don't. And there's some kind of advantage sometimes to do it like this because um, agents are not so emotional. So if you give them a clear advice to always sell, if X happens, then they will do it and not be like a human that says, oh, but maybe it comes back. Yeah. So that's why, from a statistical perspective, it could be a benefit to let go in certain areas and give clear instructions how to act and then rely on the thing to act like this. Um, but so why would you want an autonomous AI? So you want maybe to improve decisions, and you can do that, for example, if you have insurance companies who have to pay out certain amount of money if something happens.
Mhm.
And then if the case occurs, your customer will send in a report and say, hey, I want, 200 euros back because I don't know, my dog broke someone's, I don't know, stereo system by running through, anything like this. So then you can give the AI an autonomy to decide within certain ranges. And then what you should definitely do, and what people also do, is to add a tip, like a standard fraud detection system
Mhm.
who will see if once these decisions are made by the AI, if there a pattern turns up, if someone goes like, "Oh, now my dog is breaking stereo systems every week." Yeah. So this would be then catched by the fraud detection system, and by doing so, we can likely save a lot of money, be more efficient. Every now and then we pay too much. That's okay because the overall saving is better. And as we maybe put a threshold to say 200 euros, we know it's not going to break the system. It's
Mhm.
purely transactional. Um, and the really bad guys we call by the fraud detection. So it works autonomous in a way, but it works autonomous in a way that we would let a call center agent make decisions. Yeah.
Mhm.
And we would also check on them if there's someone who starts to make a deal with his best friends and, so it's not really autonomous because we set the boundaries. Yeah. And I think in that sense, it can really be useful to create kind of autonomous systems that we either control with statistics and fraud detection and whatever, or with humans whom we actively involve into the work process. So I always call this like a Coca-Cola test. Yeah, at least most developers can really relate to it, um, because I or most developers have no idea how to brew real Coca-Cola or Fritz Cola or whatever they prefer, yeah? But it only takes them one sip or even just, the nose to
Mhm.
say, "That's the real stuff," or, "Are you trying to poison me?" Yeah? So, if we create workflows that give people the opportunity to test the results of the AI in such a way, yeah. So you have a look, and without really tracking back the entire process, you know that this is a reasonable result or it is definitely wrong.
Mhm.
And you can keep control of the autonomous work in between. You have a person who can really make the call, is this correct or not? And if it's not, then you have to do what you always did. And if it's correct, you can move on. Again, this is autonomous in the middle, but not in the decision or in the sign off. And in this ways, I think it makes sense. I really can't think of any reason why I would want an AI to make totally free decisions with my money and maybe run me into debt. The risk is too high. I have a past, a future, and a today, yeah? And I want a future, and I want to be able to create it, yeah? And I can't if I let agents just do anything, that I become passive, and I don't like that.
Um, yeah, I think uh, when we think about business, what uh, see you when you have your on your client side, what are the yeah what problem or I don't know the right word. What I say problem. What problem are companies struggling with AI most?
You mean like when they use it or?
Yeah, but when they start with adopting and adopting AI in the company.
Mm, yeah. I think that a big problem is that everyone is driving companies crazy. Yeah. Um, there's so much buzz about what model to use, what is the newest trend, how is the best uh, picture creating LLM going, and when will they release something new. So people get totally lost in trying to follow trends.
Mm,
Um, and the sad thing is that from a strategy perspective, nothing really changed. Yeah.
mm,
So from a business perspective, I still have the problem that people have since Stone Age. Yeah. The problem that we have since Stone Age, or maybe a little later, is I have something here, an item that cost me 90 cents to produce. So I have to sell it for 110 so that in this year I can still survive and, maybe grow my business a little bit. The
mhm,
problem did not change at all. So the best thing that companies can do is to say, hey, let me review my strategy and my numbers as always and find out where my problems are and where my opportunities are as always. And only then I ask the question, okay, maybe there are some things that last year I think I couldn't solve, but now having a new tool, Gen AI, maybe it's not possible to do that in an efficient way. My colleague Rutka always says, from a technology perspective, most questions that people give us can be
mhm,
solved with Gen AI tools that are 3 years old.
uh,
Yeah. We have we are not even close to solving all the problems that we can solve with technology, um, with 4-year-old technology or even older, yeah? Um, it's not the problem. So, the business problem has not changed. The way we can find out what the business problem is did not change. People are completely confused and looking into the stars and, trying to find out what the newest models can do, but they don't even need them. Um, typically, typical problems that are easier to solve with Gen AI are text based, are in areas that are not GDPR relevant, so anything that's or that have a reasonable data size and can be run with local models on local servers. Yeah. Um, that's the high level advice. Not sure if that helps, but other than that, just keep to business and then just see what problem needs to be solved, and then we see if it's with Gen AI or not. Yeah.
Mm. But what would you say, uh, actually in implementation AI, is it a technology problem or is it a culture problem?
Yeah, I said I think very very often it's first of all it's a who do we want to be with AI problem, because that's where the hesitation comes from. So once you solve that and have kind of an ethical guideline, so these things you want to do with AI and these things you don't want to do with AI, then you have kind of a calm moment, a moment to breathe because you made this decision. And technology and change and everything comes after. Yeah. So and sometimes you don't even need change, and technology is easy because if you create a process that simply cuts out a piece of work and gives it back in a better structured and maybe easier to solve way, you don't need change. Yeah, I did it with. So we have one of our clients was willing to go to the newspaper with us, and we did a very small process there. It was about having a very long text to describe a book, and they
Mhm,
have catalogs where they sell books. So the task was to shorten this text and um, so that it fits the catalog, the size, and then it should be printed. So what people before us tried to do was to create the full catalog with Gen AI, but that led to a problem that people had a look and then they liked the text somehow, but they wanted to do small changes or they were insecure if the text is accurate or not and so on. And so they just deleted the whole thing and started new.
mhm,
So what we did is really think about how the process is good. So what we did is we stayed in the same program that people used to do before. So it's an Adobe product,
mm,
and we put in the long text. We shorten it with AI, and if the target was 100 digits, we made it 120. Yeah. So by default, we made sure people had to change something. And it's easier to shorten something with 100 digits than 3,000 because you don't have to read the whole thing and move through your head like, what can I put in and what can I put? So we got the pattern of how they did it in the past. We put this in. We also gave them the full text as a reference if they wanted to. So now all they have to do is click through, cut out 20 digits where they would like to do that, and move on. And
mhm,
this process didn't really need any change because they didn't have to change. Yeah, the only thing that changed for them is they had to read 120 digits rather than 3,000. But if they wanted to, they could still do it for quality reasons. Yeah. And from a technology perspective, yes, I think this needed like 10 days of development time overall. Yeah. But it was not anything where we doubted that technology could cover it. So everything like adjusting text, shortening text, making it longer. Um, it can be done, no problem, if you put the target first, if you think through how the process should look like, if then you implement it, technology is not the threshold. It's good thinking is the threshold. Yeah.
Yeah, we have also the topic I often hear, it's the problem with bias or hallucination, and yeah, I
Mhm.
think so. What did you think about this, and how can companies or people work with this problem?
Mhm. So it becomes a problem if you're trying to automate to the fullest potential. Yeah.
mhm,
So in my little example, where do hallucinations typically come from? Yeah, I think the word is really, really bad for the effect because it is not hallucinations are not completely random. Yeah. But they come from two reasons. Either um, the data is not there, and then as any good student, it solves it in the best possible way, or the data has mistakes. So there's three, I'm sorry. Either there's mistakes in the data, or you don't have the data, or your prompt is not good enough. Yeah, that's
Well,
the typical reasons where it comes from. So if you set up the process in a way that a knowledgeable human has a look at the final result in a way that it cannot skip it. Yeah, you have to avoid that people can become lazy and just say yes, yes, yes. That's why we put in this 120 words instead of 100, because it enforces the human corrective here.
well,
Yeah. If you do that, you don't have a problem with hallucinations, because you have maybe 200 texts that are good and one in which my human goes in and says, hey, there's a picture of a thriller, and the long text says there's a thriller, and here in the short version there's only some romantic bullshit. Yeah, that is definitely wrong. And then you go like, yeah, but last year I would have had to write 100 articles, and now I only have to write one that I now trapped. So in this process, hallucinations are not a problem because we check them. And this is how you should work with Gen AI. You should not try to do something that's statistically impossible, which is to bring a stochastic model to 100% accuracy. It's not going to happen with this technology, but you have to take the system as it is and build your processes so that this shortcoming of this model is traced down. And that's how we do it.
And um, sometimes I think also human have bias. I think so. So
Yeah.
one example that's yeah. I think actually in the world, all the people think the most evil company in the world is Palantir, and they built a system where where they can detect where's the next criminal act, and who are well,
Mhm.
most times who is the victim, who is the evil guy,
Yeah.
and it's often tracked. It's in the USA, black people. So then that is then people say that the system is racism. But is this? Did you think the system is racism, or is it a human bias because we don't like to hear, uh, something like that?
Mhm. Yeah, so I think this is there's many elements to your question, yeah. I so the issue with determining where the next criminal activity will take place is, of course, that you criminalize people who have not done anything wrong, um, and that this will even create more that is sometimes creating the bias that it has in the system in real life. Yeah, because let's assume that you have a city, and then there's one area with more criminals and then one area with less criminals. So of course you send police more to the area with more criminals, which you actually have to do. That's okay, but even more intense. So now you will maybe even control every habitant of the n- criminal area and find like 3% more because you never detect everything. And you will not control anyone in the less criminal area, which will even make this bias higher because the few people who do strange stuff there um, will not be traced down. And you enforce this issue, and then you always get the problem of coincidence and correlation. Um, so even if maybe the that's my personal hypothesis. If the root cause for criminal behavior is poverty, yeah, but there is a correlation of poverty and say a certain area where you come from, then it happens very easily that people assume that the root cause was where they come from, and the real root cause of poverty is not seen. And so you put in measures that um, make life even harder for those people, who put them even deeper into poverty, who will even he will then become more criminal because they have no other way to survive. Yeah. So this is kind of the Palantir effect from my perspective. Yeah. And there's more. Um, but if you think about it in a different way, AI can also really help because um, yes, every human being has biases, and I like to bring my own example. So there was at work many years back, there was one female that I have to say it, I really hated her. Yeah. So the way that person would breathe could
Mm,
make me angry. Yeah. And this is absolutely irrational, completely unfair. Yeah, I'm the bad person here, not her, but I cannot change this emotion. Yeah. So I can tell you for sure that if I was the CHRO of a large company and I would check pictures of applicants, no female that looks similar to that other female would ever get a job in this company. Yeah.
mm,
And I even think it is completely fair to say that no female being similar to that female would ever be my personal assistant. Yeah.
mm,
Because no matter how competent, if there's no personal fit, then you can also just leave it. Yeah. It would be a nightmare for both of us. But if you are in such a leading position and you would never in person work with that other person, then your bias is a problem because it's absolutely unfair. Yeah. And here, Gen AI can help a lot because it only sees the data that it actually sees. So if I build up a system where I cut out all pictures and you know, all hints to where someone is living and so on. So I clean up this data in this way before, and then I match it to positions. And then I ask my system to say, hey, look, from the data you have, yeah,
mm,
who should take that role? Um, could be that it would tell me like, Wiebke, I just wondering, yeah, uh, this candidate is best qualified and super smart and lives in the right area and da da da. Why did you dismiss her? And I would maybe realize like, oh, maybe, maybe I was biased. Maybe I should just stay out of the process and let everyone else decide. Yeah. So maybe my gut feeling is right, but maybe not. Most likely not. And I think this is really helpful because you can do that. People cannot forget, but AI can forget. So if you realize where you're biased, you can make it forget, and then you can make it help you to make good decisions.
mm. Yeah, I think there's actually it's a big battle. It's the ATS, the application talents and systems. A lot of
Mhm.
people now writing AI writes a lot of resumes and fight against the systems from the companies. I think this will this will be hard. I have seen it also. I've written my normal CV all the time, and I see after I don't know 20 minutes I get refused night at 3 o'clock, and then I think okay. Here's something. I don't know if the a lot of companies work at this time in the human resources departments. I
Mhm.
think so I've checked and then I've written uh, all my CVs like what they have inside their the keywords and
Mhm.
how they describe their company philosophy, and then I say okay, got more invites to this. So yeah, I think yeah that's a good example.
Yeah.
For for the buyers. But um, I think a little bit, a lot of people are also confused about, yeah, I think security with AI. It can expose, I don't know, some data it should not be. How did you think about these processes to secure AI and who should be in charge for this?
Mhm. Yeah, I think it's sometimes really, how you say it, it's frightening if you ask the chatbots that you use more often about, what kind of personality you have or what it thinks you should stop doing or whatever, because they have become more cautious. I'm testing it every now and then. So half a year back, they would tell you what psychological problems you have, and now they've really been, rolling back, and they become more cautious of assuming who you might be or what your psychological profile could be. So I think that's um it's interesting because it's definitely on the surface only. So they made uh, their security prompts better so that the tools don't share so much, but it doesn't mean that they don't evaluate the patterns. Um, and so this is something that is simply there, and we have to be aware that now if I maybe have a fight with my boss in a big corporation, yeah, someone could just take all the press interviews and all the emails that you have and put it into a chatbot and say, okay, how should I best deal with that person? So we can manipulate much better, um, and are manipulated better. Yeah. So if someone takes the effort, um, I think the issue about data privacy is also absolutely underestimated. Um, because look, if I'm for example producing just, I don't know, bubble gum in Germany, yeah. So and then maybe I'm just a small private company with no intention to go big, yeah. And if then I put my financial statement into ChatGPT, open world, and train my model, yeah,
Mhm.
maybe it's just doesn't matter because if I would say like, hey, if anyone's got a question, I do pay my taxes in a very good way, and I'm trying to do my best. If anyone find out. I can also print it for you. Yeah. If that is what you feel, then there will not be any big result because also no ruler of a larger company would want to read your financial statement. Yeah. And so how should they get it? But as soon as we are in either more relevant areas where, for example, it could be interesting for a US or Chinese or Russian company to find out about your pending patterns. Um, we have to be aware that they don't even have to get their hands on my actual data to find out what I'm doing because these networks work in a way that on the one hand I send my question and on the other hand the answer is matched. So I can read from my answer that is created in my system what your question is, right? And I cannot really repeat it fully, but I had a longer discussion with an ethical hacker some weeks back, and I was so I expected that things would be bad, but I was still super shocked. Yeah, because I didn't consider this relation, and I think for really confidential data, such as defense or so, the only way you can grant data security is to have your own machine in your basement with very thick walls and some other security things that you have to do, and then just run a local model, and that's it. Because if someone wants to access the data, they can access the data, full stop. Yeah. Um, and everything else, just how high do I build the wall so that it's maybe too much effort for people to climb it. Yeah.
Mhm.
This is how I think about it. Like, who cares? What if I lose it? If I building marketing ads with Gen AI, then I think, okay, worst case, the hacker books a vacation in my hotel. Yeah,
Mm.
if he finds out, so then whatever. Yeah, maybe he buys my product, maybe not. I couldn't care less. For everything where I don't have this kind of an attitude, I have to consider how who would care and how, and then I can think about using Gen AI or not, and my security measures, and of course legal instructions. But I think that's clear, so I'm not mentioning it.
Mm.
Um,
Yeah, I think one topic is trust. So um, who should be the state aware of the AI? Should the companies they build it? Should it the company they use it? Should it be the user? Who should be aware of the AI? And yeah,
mm,
who's responsible?
yeah, so so there's two words, right? Responsible and trust. So trust. from my opinion, trust comes from a repeated behavior that is to my liking. Yeah. So if I'm many times walking outside my house on the lawn, yeah, I trust that the ground will hold me, you know, and that it will feel in a certain way. And I trust that it will be like this the next time again. So, and that's a very, 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 very basic description of it. But for example, if I have a friend and I get to know that person, then people have this, or humans have this ability to give a little bit of trust in advance. So we say, yeah, I'm I'm willing to trust you without proof. I will test it, yeah. And the more often we interact and the more often the behavior is as expected and good, the more I will say I really trust this person. Yeah. So, and that goes for business if I am interacting with a company and every time I pay money to do phone calls and I pay the money and I can do the phone calls, then I start to trust the company. And it is not necessarily combined to a person. Yeah, because I can trust an institution, a friend, or soil. And this trust can go very, very fast if suddenly I pay my money, but I cannot do phone calls. Yeah. So, and then comes the question, who is responsible? Yeah. Who is responsible? Because responsibility can only come from someone who can explain why it happens and who can be accountable. So, give me my money back, for example. Yeah. So, and this can only be a human because well, it can also be a company, but in this company, people have then to make the decision that they explain me. I don't know, our network was down, and so I can explain the network was down, so I can take this, I can explain what happened, and I give you your money back. Here's 2 euros for the day you couldn't take the phone call. Or 50 euros because maybe I missed an important appointment somehow. So they can make these decisions and they can reimburse me or explain, or my trust is completely gone. Can also happen. And what is interesting about that is that we have some lawsuits already where companies wanted to put this responsibility to the provider of the chatbot. Um, and from a legal perspective, it was denied. So they said, if we don't care if you work with sloppy chatbot providers or bad staff, or if you are, incapable yourself, but this is within your responsibility, so you have to pay it. And more importantly, people also refuse to accept that apology. They say, "I'm your customer, and as I am your customer, I want you to fix it. And maybe you can pass the charge to the chatbot creating system, but I don't care about it. Your reputation is at stake and not the chatbot providers because it's you that I have the relationship with." And so I think this responsibility thing is something we really have to consider as business owners. Yeah. People don't let us get away with it's someone else's fault.
Mm, yeah, yeah. So, wow, this was an awesome episode. You're talking 1 hour. So, yeah, it's really interesting and something new. I never have talked about because I more have the talking about technology a lot, and it's interesting to think about, or have a different look on all this. So yeah, then I will say thank you for your time and staying with me here, and give all your perspectives, and yeah, thank you, Wiebke, and have a nice day.
Yeah. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.